business owners that puts them in front of a global audience. And in behind those shows is a whole range of things, from digital magazines to social media to blogging to email to lead generation, just a whole range of things. Everyone, and welcome back. I'm your host, Tony Lontis, and this is the Everyday Businesses Show. And we have yet another amazing guest to introduce you to today. But before I get on with that, if you're listening live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter, please know that you can comment. And if you're wondering about any of the information that we talk to our guest about today, it will be attached to this interview wherever you're watching it. Now, don't forget, we'd love you to subscribe to our new network, Everyday Women's Network. The link will be in the chat below. And the Tony TV channel on Binge, Networks USA, Hero Go, Zondra TV, etc., etc. Live and global. We are also available on smart TVs on Roku, Samsung, LG, and Amazon Fire. Now, we do each week a beautiful part of the show which pays special recognition of our Indigenous communities in the development of Australia's cultural identity. So today, I want to respectfully acknowledge the people of the Yugambeh language region, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and broadcast, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging, and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples watching or listening today. Now, the title of our interview today is an Trip the Light Tour with Jill Goux, an invitation to crystal gridding and tapping into transformational timelines. Now, I'm really excited about this show because I get to talk to my beautiful friend Jill, the Energy Renovator. But before I introduce you to her, here's what you need to know. Jill is a sacred light worker, a global thought leader who comes to the table with over 27 years of experiences. She is a seasoned intuitive practitioner, channeler, transformational coach, master dowser, published writer, spiritual teacher, and she loves to shake things up with abundance, joy, laughter, and light. And I can vouch for this. Absolutely. Jill's mission is to empower others to stay fully charged and energetically aligned to their purpose through their life-changing experiences. Jill coined the phrase the Energy Renovator to clear intention to help people better understand and manage their energy systems while raising the vibration of their environment, their body, their mind and spirit, so they effortlessly shift from survive to thrive. Jill has facilitated numerous retreats across the US and around the world over the past 2 decades. From Naples, Florida to Sedona, from Mount Shasta to Tuscany, Italy, she enjoys traveling and gathering people together for life-altering events. And I tell you, one of those events, retreats, is on my wish list in the near future. So Jill is currently on a US tour to build a crystal grid of light. And I'm so excited to have Jill on the show today. Welcome to the show, Jill.
Thank you, Tony. I'm so glad to be here. I'm just excited beyond belief. Thank you.
When you and I first spoke about the crystal grid, I remember the physical reaction I had to that news, thinking, oh my goodness, that is what we need. Now, I was going to talk about this in the show later today, but I'm going to start with that, Jill, because people might not be aware the powerful importance of crystals and building a crystal grid of light, what that looks like, what that means, and how that was downloaded to you. It's pretty important, isn't it?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, this past summer, I call them downloads. I know everybody calls them different things, but I call them downloads, meaning it wasn't a thought that didn't feel like it came from me. It kind of came in and it was like this inspiration. And at the time I was in this in-between stage between I was renting a house, I wanted to buy a house, and the timing wasn't working out. I mean, I know we've all been there where it's just like you're pushing and pulling and it's not showing up.
Yes.
And I had this very, like, I keep pulling from my heart because that's where I felt it was my chest. And I had this pull, this draw that was saying this, Jill, put your house in storage. And for me, Tony, I've always considered my house as like my sacred space, where I am grounded, where I'm, it's like, the womb, like where you're being held. Like that's what I always, my house was that. And so when I was getting this urge and this pull and I was hearing, it's like, no, store your house. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, hell no. And so I was in resistance, even though I was hearing this, and I was like, no, so, through this time, that's what it came to, is like I ended up storing my house. And once I worked through some of my own, I call them my 3D issues, of living in this 3D world of being in resistance to change, or something that, we always go, this is what I think my life is going to turn out like. And then when it doesn't, we lose our minds, right? So it's a great practice for us. And so I had to do some of my own clearing work around the resistance of putting my house in storage, even though I could feel it was the right thing.
Goodness, see, Jill, like sorry, Lord audience, why I'm getting excited is because I jumped on the call to talk to Jill about this interview, and we had some pre-show conversation, and I just said to her, like, it's a bit of a struggle at the moment. We've got the house for sale, and what I didn't get to say to Jill was I'm resisting the change and the thought of putting our house into storage. And then you've just
oh my gosh. Oh, so you're putting your house in storage too. Oh, well, maybe my story can be inspiring or help you, Tony, to get through, because this is my next thing I want to share. Is the minute I did some work around it. Obviously we all have to do our own personal work and clearing and grounding, all that. But I remember waking up one morning, Tony, and I felt different. I felt this freedom because I allowed it and I accepted it. And I was like, I can do this. I'm going to be okay. And I feel like this is part of what I need to do, even though I don't want to do it. Like my mind, right? The ego's like, no, you can't do that.
The ego's going, you can't be homeless. I'm like, actually,
exactly.
We can, but we've got to.
And I'm going to tell you can do it because I'm doing it right now. Yeah. So I came to this place, and once I got into the place of allowing and accepting, that is when more downloads started coming in. And I kept hearing the words, Jill, you need to travel consciously and with purpose. You need to connect people together. And then along came the message, you need to bury crystals that are activated back into the earth and create a giant crystal grid across the US with the purpose. And it was very clear, to expand heart energy of all of us here in the United States. So we can have more compassion for each other. And I like to say, it's not about like we have to agree with the other person. It's like we can agree to disagree, but how can we have respect and kindness, stability, compassion for one another? So the first notion that came forward was expanding our hearts. The second one was to send some love and light and some healing energy to Mother Earth, because she's who supports us. We need to support her. And we're all one. So the crystals were also supporting Mother Earth. And then the third thing was to raise the vibration in order to allow a new world to emerge, like a new paradigm. And I like to mention this, Tony, because, I think it's, we talked about the ego just a minute ago. It's so easy for us to get wrapped up in the drama, the trauma. And there is a lot, like, there's a lot going on in the world, not just in the US, like all over the place. It's a time of change. And so it's easy that we can get stuck in that low vibrational, heavy energy. And it's one thing to recognize, see it, call it out, witness it. But it's another
you have to do the work that clears it and moves you forward.
Yes. And then also it's like having that opening, a space and possibility for something new to come into it. And if we just keep focusing all of what's not working and not focusing on what is possible, we're just going to get and stay stuck over here. So this tour, to me, the message that came forward for me is to just start connecting people together in collaboration and putting out this crystal grid with our love and light and intentions to help raise the vibration for us to remember we can create new things and a new world can emerge. And that's kind of what I was talking about, tapping into transformational timelines.
I absolutely believe, and there is no doubt in my mind that we are ushering in a new age and a new era. And of course, that's going to be bumpy, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, we are. Yes, moving into this new era, but it takes a collective. It takes a group. And so I always tell people this isn't about me, although I'm the one out traveling about. It's about us. It's about collective. And so that was the message. And so I packed up my house. I put it in storage, and very quickly kind of organized things a little bit. Got things on a new website posted and put out there. And then I reached out and I said, hey, I'm looking for star hosts. I'm calling them star hosts, and they're people that are, they resonate with this tour, and they're maybe light workers or connected in their communities with other like-hearted people, and they would be willing to host me at their house or someplace nearby, and then gather people in their community together, and then we have a crystal grid ceremony live and in person at their location, and then we also include a live Zoom crystal grid ceremony, so people can join in from all over the country if they choose to.
And it's not just the US. Since you started this, Jill, it's actually expanded globally, hasn't it?
So right now I'm just in the US, but it's so funny you asked that, Tony, because at every crystal grid ceremony, I have somebody, I'll talk and share and explain what we're up to. And I have everybody, there's always at least one person say, is this going to be global? And I go, it's not now, but I feel it.
That's the download for me. Like, I already see it as global. When Jill and I first talked, the image that came to my mind was like a spider web spread over the globe, and at each connection of the spider web was like a light. And so I remember saying to Jill at the time, that's how the crystal light grid works. I see it working around the globe and surrounding the globe in a life-changing energy field, which we've needed for so long.
Yeah. And let me tell you, I'm going to be straight up. I have been talking and connecting with other people who have done crystal grids as well. So it's not like I'm the only one doing this. They have been around. I know that's all over the place, and in our lifetime, but also lifetimes before. So there's crystal gridding happening. And what I feel, it's like you said, it's this net of crystals that are being put around the globe and in different locations. And at a couple of the ceremonies, Tony, when I guide people in, messages come forth, intuitive messages. And at a couple of them, I had very clear messages saying, this is more important than you guys understand at this level where you're at on humanity, but just keep going. But there's more to this than you understand or realize at this time, because it's like the information hasn't quite unfolded. So I'm just saying yes. And I'm stepping into, and I can't tell you, Tony, I've had a lot of support, but there are some people like, what are you doing?
I was just going to say, there will be people watching this interview even that go, oh my goodness, what are those girls talking about? And that's okay, because just the fact that it has entered your consciousness, the next time you hear something like a crystal grid mentioned, you'll come back to either watching this interview or hearing Jill speak, and it will spark your conscious awareness. Well, maybe those girls are not far off the mark, because we know now that crystals hold energy. It's actually scientifically proven, and it's energetically powerful stuff. It's powerful work, Jill.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd like to explain a little bit more about that, if I may.
Please.
So when this download was coming through, Tony, I reached out to some of my colleague friends and other light workers, and I said, "You guys, I just want to pass this by you. Like this, these are the downloads I'm getting." And it's kind of, it's like pack up your house and start traveling.
Yeah.
And one of my friends started smiling and smirking. I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Jill, I've had an email sitting in my email box, or like ready to send for the past 3, 4 days, and I just haven't. Every time I go to hit send, I don't." And I said, "Well, what is it?" She said, in September, so this past September, she said, "I'm doing an event in Minneapolis." And her and I have done retreats together out like at Mount Shasta or Sedona, different things like that. And she said, "Jill, I've got this calling that I'm supposed to bring people to Minneapolis and anchor light here because there's sacred places in Minneapolis."
There is.
And people don't usually think of Minneapolis as like a sacred place.
I actually know that there are incredible amounts of light workers in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yeah. So she had this call to gather people to anchor light. And then when I told her that part of my calling was to have these activated crystals and bring them across the country, she said, "We need to do this together." So I brought my 80 plus crystals to this, and we worked together in a small group, and we anchored this light while also activating the crystals during that time. And then when I take these crystals out, Tony, and we have these crystal grid ceremonies, I have each person, when we get to the part where we're burying it back in the earth, hold the crystal to their heart and speak their intentions into the crystal for humanity, for the collective.
Because this is a global,
yes.
I want to say healing, because I actually feel that part of the work that you're doing, Jill, is the energetic healing of the earth. Now, I know you say the US, but again, my intuitive
starting here
is, this is just the start. And I think that it needed to start with the US, bearing in mind all the things that have happened in recent times from politics to things that are happening with everyday people. I think that it needed to start in the US, but that it will be a global intention.
Yeah, I do too. And the one thing too about the Midwest, if you've ever heard the Midwest is called the Heartland.
Yes.
Have you heard that?
Yes.
And so the Midwest is like the heart of the country.
So that's where it needs to start. That makes sense.
Well, yeah, and to have the light anchored there because it's the heart. And that's what part of this tour is, to expand heart energy. So that whole thing just fell into place with such ease, grace, and flow. And it was amazing to witness. And just like I said, I feel like I'm just stepping forward and saying yes to what's coming forward. And this is giving me an opportunity, Tony, to practice being in the flow.
Yes.
And in this tour,
can be scary, can't it?
Oh my gosh.
It can be scary to just let go and pack up your house and go, I don't know where I'm going, but I don't need to know. So I get that really strongly. I am earth centered and physical, home centered. So for me to have a thought about, let's pack up the home and see where we go, I'm trying to surrender to and it's scary. I know it's going to be okay. So I know it's going to be okay, but it's just that, come on, it's going to be okay. Just do this, and this. It is that bit of fear that you go,
Yeah. So how I've described it, it's being untethered. Untethered from your home, untethered from the place that makes you feel grounded, right? But that's just an illusion. Like our mind's like, oh, I have to have a house to be grounded.
We can be grounded anywhere. You just drop from your head into your heart, do a grounding process, and you can be grounded in Timbuktu or wherever you are.
Right. And I might be there someday.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. But I feel like this tour has been giving me the opportunity to practice being in the flow beyond anything I've ever experienced before in my life.
An example for the people that are watching on.
And that's what I'm hoping, is that I decided to vlog. So I have a video vlog on my website that people can follow. And when when this came through, it was very clear. It's like, Jill, you're going to vlog. And what that means by vlog is like, you're going to put it all out there. The good, the bad, the high, the low, the ins, the outs, the ups and the downs. And there are videos on there, you're going to see me crying. You're going to see me laughing hysterically and, all and everything in between. And so I'm hoping that, by sharing this tour with other people, that they can learn maybe how to be in the flow a little easier. And maybe I can hold your hand as you go through what you're going through, Tony, because it feels like the exact same thing that I did a few months ago. And I just want to reassure you that like once you really do let go and just surrender to it and be in this place of allowing and accepting, things shift. And then it's like more information can come in to support you on the next step. That's what I noticed for me. So I hope this is helpful for anybody who's watching it too. If they're,
Jill, because where can people find your blog? Can you tell the audience where they can go to see your blog?
My website, which is just my name. So it's jillgoux.com. And there's a Trip the Light page, and you can see where it's like about, the vlogs, stories.
Fantastic. And we'll also put that in the notes attached to this show as well, Jill.
Wonderful.
We've had this wonderful conversation, and I'm cognizant of time, and I want to actually let the audience know that what you're doing now has come from decades of spiritual work. And so I really wanted to let the audience know, where did it start for you? Like, how did you come into channeling light in your spiritual path? Can you tell the audience about that?
Yeah. So there's so many stories. I don't know where to start, but I'll try to give you little nuggets.
Yes, please.
So a fascinating story. I went to college and graduated, got degrees, and was kind of working after college in different places and spaces. And I was working at a very popular bar restaurant in downtown Minneapolis. And I know the listeners will get this when I share this story, but it was like a Saturday night. It was late, and a very famous band had been playing in town. And the musicians from the band came in to the restaurant and were sitting up in one area, and I was working at the very opposite end of the restaurant. And the strangest thing happened. One of the band members, who was the keyboard player, we kind of caught eyes, and we started walking towards each other slowly, like we were being pushed together. And we met in the middle of the restaurant, and he's like, "Hey," and I was like, "Hi." And I was like, "I think I'm supposed to talk to you." He goes, "I think I'm supposed to talk to you too." And it was like weird and awkward, but we both felt the same thing. And it wasn't like a sexual attraction thing. It was like angels pushing us together. And he said, "I think I'm supposed to tell you to read this book." And I was like, "Okay." And so we went over to got a piece of paper, and he wrote down the Celestine Prophecy. He wrote down his name and his phone number. He said, "If you ever want to talk about this book, I just finished it, and it was mind-blowing to me." So and this was in 1993. And so I read the book, and Tony, that was the book that awakened me to my spiritual path and journey. I was just like, it kind of was like a dawning of, oh my gosh, this is what I felt my whole life, and I never really had support or anybody explaining to me my intuition or how energy works. And it lit me up. And that was the moment that I got on my spiritual path and journey. And funny story, that moment of time was like less than 5 minutes, the conversation. But I knew who he was. I had his name and number. I never called him and talked to him about the book. Fast forward 23 years later, I do another podcast with a friend of mine and tell the full story about him. And I, name drop, and I say all these things. Somebody finds the podcast and says it to him, because I always wanted to say thank you to him for being such an inspiration in my life. He reached out and contacted me, and he said, "Jill, I listened to your podcast," and I had tears in my eyes. He said, "I didn't know I had such an impact in somebody's life." And then the funny thing, 2 weeks later, he was playing music 2 miles from my house. And so we re-met like 23 years later in person. And we've been friends ever since, like good friends, and so you just never know. So that's how I opened up to my spiritual path and journey. And then over the years, Reiki was I call it my foundational energy healing practice that came into my life. That was my foundation. And then I was curious, and I started learning different modalities over the years and adding, I call it energetic tools, to my toolbox. And then in 2017, I went to a retreat for myself. Usually I'm hosting the retreats, and I decided, time for some self-care, time for some work on Jill. And I went to a retreat in Costa Rica, and there were 44 people from across the country, across the globe, across the world that came. Yeah. And during my stay there, I had this powerful awakening in the middle of the night. And it was like an emotional upheaval, and waves of emotion came, and it was really like around me stepping more into my power. It was very clear on what that was. Well, I ended up being outside in the jungle, and I had an activation of warm swirl in my right hand and a cold drop in my left hand. And I saw this big blue angel show up in front of me, and that's not my gift to see things with my eyes open. So it was this powerful activation. And then I went home from that retreat feeling wonderful and great. And about 2-3 weeks later, I was lying in bed ready to fall asleep, and light languages came out of my throat. About 5 different
I've got shivers and shakes when you tell that.
There was 5 different ones that came over like 20 minutes, and my phone was just out of reach, so I couldn't, I was going to record it, but I would had to have gotten up, and I just didn't know what was going on. So I just sat there, and all these light languages were coming through. And I remember, I'm going to tell you another story about resistance.
Yes.
Because I wasn't asking to be a channel. I didn't know, and it came through, and I was like, this is ridiculous. I don't know what this is. I kept calling it crazy town. This is crazy town. Yeah. And so I worked a lot. They worked with me a lot to help me understand why it's coming through as light languages. And so is that okay if I share with you the message that came through? They're like, y'all down there, and they're Southern for some reason. y'all down there.
That's great.
Y'all down there you're too stuck in your minds, your head, your ego. And we come through in these different languages, both ancient and galactic, that it's a frequency, tone, vibration, and sound. It's a wave. And then it comes to us on a cellular, soul, and DNA level to help us remember who we are, remember where we came from, and to help us to continue to grow, expand, and evolve. And so it bypasses our thinking brain. It's like, zoop. And so I always think of it as like ancient and galactic music that's coming to us. Right? And we can just vibe with it and feel it and take it in and then work with it at our own way. And it attunes to each person's resonance, depending on where they're at and what they're working at. But that's what they came to me with, because I was like, if I want to channel, I want to be able to speak in English so people understand what I'm saying. I mean, that's so silly. It's so ego. But now I understand. And they're saying that the importance of sound, vibration, tone, and is very important for us. And I also incorporate that in the crystal grid ceremonies. The light languages come through, and we activate the crystal with sound.
The audience can see that in your blog posts as well, can't they, Jill?
Yes. And I have the participants even tone into the earth as we're sending a blessing too. And so it's powerful. I think sound healing, there's magic in there too. I mean, we could talk another whole 2 hours on this.
I know. I'm conscious of the time, Jill, and I want to make sure that we get to the audience to talk about your giveaways before we run out of time. So you've got a couple of special giveaways for the audience today. Now, just remember, if you're watching this, the details of how to get these giveaways and coupon codes will be attached to this interview wherever you're watching. So Jill, can you tell us about those?
Yes. So if you are interested in joining a crystal grid ceremony online in Zoom, so you can be anywhere in the world. And listen, just because I'm in the US right now, doesn't mean you have to be in the US to support and be a part of this tour. You can be anywhere. So that's a code for half off for a crystal grid ceremony. And then I also have $50 off a 60-minute energy renovation soul session. So I love working one-on-one with people. It is like my jam. Yes. I have a lot of jams, but I really like that jam.
This is your favorite one to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really like to help people understand their energetic field and just work with energy and help, teach them and work with their energetic field. So that is $50 off a 1-hour soul session if you want to work with me in that way. If you're called, I always feel, like people know if you're like, there's something about this person that resonates with me. And then there's other people like, yep, nope, not for me. And so I always encourage people, listen to that. Right? I'm not for everybody, but there'll be people out there who'll be like, gosh, I need to speak to Jill for a sign, and you're the sign.
There she is. I was
Yeah.
going to say that, and that is the power of these interviews in terms of video, because people get to connect and see you, Jill, and identify and connect with that beautiful energy of yours, and that's a powerful thing. So just a reminder, we have the codes to get the grid crystal grid ceremony, and we have the codes for the $50 off the 60-minute energy renovation soul session attached to this interview. Wherever you're watching, whatever time you're watching, you'll be able to connect with Jill and take part in those codes. Jill, I could continue to keep talking to you forever, but one of the questions I want to ask, and you may not be able to answer this, but because this powerful work you're doing, I think will be ongoing for a number of years, but what do you see as next for you? Obviously, you'll continue working with human connectiveness and soul renovation. But what do you see for you? Do you see anything for you that's next? And where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's the vision?
Yeah. So I do see myself, as you do and many others, continuing to travel around the world and bring this work and continue to crystal grid. When I was tapping into that question, I'm seeing speaking opportunities.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a bringer of light and joy, and when I speak, it kind of lights up the room. So I feel like I'm being called to do more speaking opportunities.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's unfolding. I know I have a book in me.
Yes.
So writing my book. And then also I'm really being called to is collaboration.
Yes.
Like collaboration with other people to do retreats or classes, courses, or just these amazing events. So I feel it's kind of a little of this and a little of that, but it feels
and I
really
was just going to say, Jill, one of the things that you and I will work on after this interview is about getting your content onto Everyday Women's Network, because I think that the spiritual and the energy work, for people to just become aware. So there's those of us that are aware and not engaged. There's those of us that are completely unaware that there are different dimensions, that there is a spiritual and soul life that is important for you to connect with. And it's really important, isn't it, Jill?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And as far as 5 years from now, I feel like 5 years is tapping into a transformational timeline that is
I do
so
too.
uplifting and generative for all and supportive. And so it's like it's almost like I can't see the third dimensional, like where I'll be and what I'll be doing. To me,
Yes,
it just
but you can feel, I feel it more than know. So I've actually gotten over the need to know, and generally tap into the I'm being guided this way or being guided that way. And then just the surrender bit is
I know we all have those bumps that we have to get through. I mean, and they can be little triggers that we've got to work on. But no, I just feel like this expansive burst of, illumination and gratitude. And I just see like light, like spreading out and so I really do want to continue just to be of service and support others, because I feel like, that's what we're all here to do, is to love and support each other in our own gifts. We all have our own unique gifts.
Yeah.
And
people, I feel like there will be people watching this interview that aren't even aware of their own gifts, haven't even thought that they might have gifts other than what is apparent to them in this moment in time. So I think that's part of the work of the next decade, is to ensure that humans understand their spiritual gifts and their spiritual understanding as well. And we've come a long way past that understanding, and we're making our way back to that understanding in this next era.
Yep. I agree. And it takes a village. And I think the more that we just connect with each other in loving, kind ways, the more we can expand together in loving, kind, generous, and abundance for all,
And the other thing is, Jill, I'm a powerful believer in an energetic ripple effect. So just me talking to you, obviously we are wonderful, wonderful friends, but the ripple impact of you and I talking together openly on a global stage is completely different and is a powerful component for understanding, because we don't know who's going to watch and in that moment go, oh my goodness, I need to know more about that. How do I find Jill? Or how do I connect with Tony? Or how do I become involved? Those things happen and we may never know about them, but they will. That my absolute belief is that that's what happens.
Yeah, I believe that too. I believe that too. I got goosebumps as you said that. And I feel if our conversation can help even one person feel inspired or motivated, or
one person may go on to do something massively amazing. Do you know? There's
or just step into their power. Yeah, and just step into their power, and then that helps others. I mean, that's what I feel like if we all just tap into our own little passions and our own fire and our own flame inside,
definitely.
That's it. That's the juice. Like that's where it's at.
Absolutely.
So I wish everybody who's listening those blessings to just
definitely
burst into their gifts.
Jill, I've had such a wonderful time chatting to you this morning. I know that we will be doing further interviews because I want to check in and see how everything's going down the track. But for today, audience, unfortunately, that's our time. Please connect with Jill on social. Jump onto her website, Jill Goux, which is GOUX.com. Really simple. Take advantage of the coupon codes that we've included with this interview. Please connect with Jill. She's doing amazing work and will continue to do it across the globe. Jill, I am so grateful to be connected to you. I love what you're doing and I'm delighted that we could share this time together.
Thank you, Tony. I am grateful for you as well. And I adore our friendship and I am just appreciative. And so blessings to you. Thank you, Tony.
And that, my wonderful audience, is your lot for this week. We will be back next week with another episode of the Everyday Business Show. I'm your host, Tony Lontis, and our guest has been Jill Goux. Bye for now. Of shows with business owners that puts them in front of a global audience, and in behind those shows is a whole range of things, from digital magazines to social media to blogging to email to lead generation, just a whole range of things.